The arena's director, Vaktan, had witnessed the demise of 3,000 combatants in his brutal contests, each death a grim trophy attesting to his meticulously crafted machine of destruction. Thus, when a human entered his registration office at Station Gamma 9, he reacted as any seasoned arena master would. He erupted in uproarious laughter, a deep, visceral, four-lunged belly laugh that caused his assistant to drop her datapad. "You," Vaktan wheezed, his multifaceted eyes welling with mirth. "You want to enroll in the trials?" The human, a female who identified herself as Riley Morgan, simply stared back. She was small by human metrics, perhaps 5.5 feet of compact musculature, clad in a tank top and cargo pants. Her hair was gathered in a messy bun, and her expression conveyed that she had heard every possible jest and found none of them particularly amusing. "That's precisely why I'm in your office," Riley stated flatly, "unless you're running a bakery on the side." Vakthan's laughter ceased. He leaned across his desk, which groaned under his considerable weight. "Little creature, do you comprehend what the trials entail? Gladiatorial combat, increasing difficulty, prize money?" "I've read the flyer," she interjected. "The flyer," Vaktan slowly repeated, "does not mention that the typical survival duration is 4 minutes. It does not mention that in 17 cycles, we have never had a combatant survive past round 8. It certainly does not mention that I specifically devised round 1 to eliminate the weak, the foolish, and the unfortunate." Riley produced a credit chip and slid it across the desk. "Does it mention that the registration fee is 500 credits? Vakthan gazed at the chip, then at the human, then back at the chip. The nature of operating a death pit meant that business was business, and this seemingly foolish biped was volunteering to be torn asunder for the entertainment of thousands. Who was he to deny the audience their spectacle? He accepted the chip. "Your funeral," he muttered, updating his registration system. "You fight in 2 hours. Try not to perish too quickly. The audience disdains brief matches." Riley nodded and turned to depart, then paused at the doorway. "Quick question. What's the record for most rounds survived?" 8. A Valoran war champion reached that far before the Ravagers claimed him. Ha! Riley appeared to ponder this. "Thanks." And then she was gone. Vakthan's assistant, a jittery Plexian named Jula, finally retrieved her datapad. "Sir, should we contact medical? Prepare the cleaning crew?" "Round 1, Vakthan declared with absolute certainty. "Will take about 90 seconds. Have the crew on standby." He was mistaken, though he would not fully grasp the extent of his error until much later. The holding area beneath the arena reeked of blood, terror, and industrial disinfectant. Riley sat on a bench, oblivious to the other fighters' glances, which ranged from pity to predatory interest. 7 others were scheduled for the initial wave: a Dracona bruiser with scales like armor plating, 2 Kelvin twins who moved in perfect synchronization, something resembling a mantis that had aggressively mated with a tank, and a few other species she did not recognize. All regarded her as if she were already dead. "First time?" the Dracona rumbled, his voice like grating stones. "Yep," Riley replied, inspecting her fingernails. "Advice?" "Run for the far wall. Perhaps you'll last 30 seconds instead of 20. "Thanks. I'll keep that in mind." The Dracona snorted smoke from his nostrils and turned away. The others resumed their pre-battle rituals, prayers, weapon inspections, controlled breathing. Riley merely sat there, looking bored. When the gate opened and sunlight streamed into the holding area, the roar of the crowd struck like a physical force. 15,000 spectators filled the tiered seats, representing dozens of species from across the sector. They had come for violence. They had come for death, and they voiced their anticipation loudly. Riley walked onto the sand, squinting against the glare. The arena was roughly circular, perhaps 200 feet across, with smooth walls too high to climb, and no cover save for a few ornamental pillars that offered no substantial protection. The other fighters dispersed, each claiming their territory. Vakthan's voice boomed from the speakers, amplified to godlike proportions. Welcome, bloodseekers, pain lovers, and connoisseurs of carnage. Today we commence a new trial season, and as always, we begin with a culling. 8 fighters enter. Perhaps 1 leaves. The rest become floor decorations. The crowd erupted into a feral frenzy. Round 1, Vakthan continued, clearly enjoying himself, is simple. Survive the renders. For those keeping score at home, the current survival rate is, let me see, oh yes, 12%. May the void have mercy on their souls, because I certainly won't. A gate on the far side of the arena rumbled open. What emerged caused several audience members to gasp. Renders were genetically modified predators, nightmares bioengineered from a dozen different deathworlds, all teeth, claws, and lethal intent. These particular specimens appeared to be a cross between wolves and bears, afflicted with severe aggression issues. 6 of them, each easily 7 feet long, muscles rippling, dripped with anticipation. They spotted the fighters and charged. The Dracona braced himself, roaring a challenge. The Kelvin twins split up, attempting to flank. The mantis tank creature shrieked and raised its blade arms. Everyone else scattered. Riley simply stood there, observing, calculating. The first render targeted the closest combatant, a reptilian fighter paralyzed by fear. The creature covered 30 feet in about 2 seconds, its jaws agape wide enough to engulf a small vehicle. Then Riley was there. She had traversed half the arena in the time it took the render to leap. Her hand shot out, seizing the creature by its lower jaw, redirecting its momentum straight into the ground with a sickening crunch. The arena fell silent. 15,000 beings collectively held their breath. The render twitched once, then stilled. Riley straightened, brushed sand from her hands, and regarded the remaining 5 renders with an expression of mild annoyance. Okay, she said quietly, though somehow the arena's acoustics amplified her voice. Who's next? That's when things became truly captivating. In his observation booth, Vakthan choked on his drinking tube. What, he stated very slowly, was that? Jula was frantically pulling up data on her screens. Sir, I'm getting readings that defy logic. The force calculations are, this shouldn't be possible. Obviously it's possible, Vakthan snarled. I just witnessed it. What else does your database say about humans? Not much, sir. They're from a planet called Earth, classified as a Class 12 deathworld. Gravity is 1.1 standard. They're supposed to be fragile compared to most spacefaring species. Does that, Vakthan pointed at the arena where Riley was now casually evading a render's lunge, look fragile to you? Down on the sand, Riley had apparently seen enough. 2 renders attacked her from different angles, coordinating their assault with the intelligence of pack predators. She dropped into a crouch, letting them overshoot, then sprang up and seized each one by the throat. There was a brief moment of thrashing and clawing from the creatures, followed by 2 distinct snapping sounds that echoed through the arena. She dropped the bodies and turned to face the remaining 3. The crowd had rediscovered its voice. They were screaming, but it was no longer the bloodthirsty cheers from before. It was something closer to shock, perhaps even a touch of fear. The Draconer, who had been holding his own against one render through sheer armored resilience, simply stopped and stared. "What are you?" he called out.
Riley shrugged. "Human?"
"That doesn't explain anything."
"Sure it does." She sidestepped another charge, grabbed the render by its tail, and used it as an improvised weapon to bludgeon one of its packmates. The sound was somewhere between an exploding melon and a drum solo.
"I'm from Earth. We're kind of durable." The last render, displaying more intelligence than its siblings, turned and attempted to flee back through its entry gate. Riley picked up a rock, casually threw it hard enough to break the sound barrier, transforming the fleeing creature into an instantaneous biology lesson. The arena fell silent again. This time, it lasted a full 10 seconds. Then Vakthan's voice crackled over the speakers, significantly less confident than before. "Well, that was unexpected. Round 1 complete. All fighters who are still breathing, report to the ready area for round 2. Riley walked off the sand, passing the Draconer, who remained frozen.
"You coming?"
she asked. He nodded mutely and followed. Behind them, the cleaning crews swarmed onto the arena floor, several of them looking distinctly queasy. The ready area was chaotic. The other surviving fighters, all 5 of them, could not stop staring at Riley. The Kelvin twins engaged in a rapid-fire conversation in their own language, occasionally pointing at her. The mantis thing meticulously cleaned its blade arms, likely attempting to process what it had just witnessed. A medical technician nervously approached Riley. "Do you need treatment?" he asked in broken standard. She glanced down at herself. There wasn't a scratch. "Nope, I'm good. But the renders, yeah, they were a little grabby. It's fine." The technician backed away slowly, as if dealing with a ticking bomb. Vakthan's image appeared on the screens throughout the ready area. His expression indicated he was enduring a day where all his assumptions had been proven wrong. "Fighters," he began. "You have 5 minutes before round 2. Use this time wisely." Then his eyes specifically found Riley. "Especially you, human. Round 2 will not be so easy." Riley located a water dispenser, filled a cup, and drank it in one swift motion. Then she sat down on a bench and closed her eyes. She appeared to be napping to any observer. The Draconer cautiously approached her, like a wild beast. "Is what they say about your planet true?" he softly inquired. "Depends on what they're saying." "That it's a death world, that everything there strives to kill everything else." Riley opened one eye. "Pretty much, yeah. Why?" Because, as the Draconer gestured towards the arena beyond the walls, "This is supposed to be the most perilous combat trial in the sector, and you seem bored." She closed her eye again. "I've had more challenging mornings. Once, in Australia, I had to contend with a cassowary, a funnel-web spider, and a crocodile before breakfast. Now that was stressful." "I don't comprehend any of those terms." "Consider yourself fortunate." A buzzer sounded. Time was up. The gates swung open, and once more, Riley stepped onto the sand. Round 2 was designated for ranged combat. Automated turrets, energy weapons, no sanctuary. Vogt had meticulously designed it to penalize survivors who relied on close-quarters expertise. The turrets ascended from concealed compartments within the arena floor, 12 of them, arranged in a flawless grid. They hummed as they powered up, targeting lasers painting each combatant with crimson dots. "Competitors," Vakken announced, "welcome to round 2. Turrets will fire in 3, 2, 1, commence." The air became saturated with energy blasts. The other combatants scattered, sprinting, evading, praying. The Kelvin twins moved fluidly, each safeguarding the other's maneuvers. The Dracona absorbed several hits, but his scales mitigated most of the damage. Riley merely stood, observing the turrets, timing their firing patterns. Then she moved. Evading energy weapons was impossible. The projectiles traveled at near light speed. However, Riley wasn't evading the projectiles. She was anticipating their firing locations based on the turret's targeting algorithms and moving before they discharged. She traversed the arena like a phantom, weaving through blasts that should have pierced her but somehow never did. Upon reaching the first turret, she seized it, tore it from the ground, circuits sparking, and hurled it at another turret. Both detonated. The spectators erupted to their feet. Riley proceeded to the next turret, and then the next. Within 2 minutes, she had obliterated all 12, leaving the arena floor strewn with smoldering debris. The other combatants stood in the abrupt silence, gawking. Vaugh's voice emanated from the speakers. He no longer sounded self-satisfied. He sounded apprehensive. Round 2 complete. All surviving combatants return to the ready area. As Riley passed him, the Dracona mumbled something in his native tongue that the translators approximated as, "We're all going to perish." "Probably not," Riley said cheerfully. "You folks are doing splendidly. Very impressive survival instincts." "The rounds intensify." "I'd certainly hope so. Otherwise this would be terribly dull." The Dracona stared at her. Then he began to laugh, a deep, resonant sound that reverberated off the walls. "You're insane." "I'm from Earth," Riley corrected. "There's a distinction." By round 5, the news had propagated. The viewership for the arena's broadcast had quadrupled. Across the sector, people were tuning in to observe the human who treated the deadliest combat trials like a casual exercise. Round 3 had involved environmental hazards, floors that opened into acid pits, walls that shot spikes, ceilings that attempted to crush her. Riley had navigated it like a parkour course, occasionally snatching other combatants from peril before they could succumb. Round 4 was designated for one-on-one duels. Riley had vanquished her opponent in 8 seconds and then stood there, looking mildly disappointed, while the crowd collectively lost their minds. Round 5 featured champion combatants, legitimate professionals drawn from the arena's reserve roster. Each was a veteran with dozens of kills to their credit. Riley yawned during the pre-fight announcement. Vogt, observing from his booth, experienced a sensation he hadn't known in years. Uncertainty. This was not how the trials operated. Combatants were meant to perish. They were meant to struggle. They were meant to bleed. This human did none of those things. "Gila," he said quietly. "Retrieve all available data on humans. Medical files, military records, everything." "Sir, most of their planet is under quarantine protocols. They only established contact with the greater galaxy 6 months ago. Data is limited." "Then acquire whatever you can. I must comprehend what I am contending with." On the arena floor, Riley was squaring off against a Valoran champion named Krell, an individual of the same species that held the previous record for rounds survived. Krell was 8 feet of scaled muscle, armed with plasma blades, trained since birth for combat. He regarded Riley with something akin to respect. "You fight proficiently, human," he stated formally. "It will be an honor to confront you." "Thanks," Riley responded. "You seem agreeable. Endeavor not to perish, all right?" Krell's expression flickered. "What?" "Round 5 does not decree anyone must die, merely that we must fight. So let us fight, and then both proceed. Does that sound acceptable? For a moment, Krell looked perplexed. Then comprehension dawned, followed by something that might have been relief. You are offering clemency. I am offering practicality. You are clearly skilled. To eliminate you would be wasteful. The buzzer sounded. The match commenced. What ensued would be analyzed in combat schools for years to come. Krell attacked with every technique in his considerable repertoire. Riley parried, blocked, redirected, never quite striking hard enough to severely wound him, but making it unequivocally clear she could if she so desired. After 3 minutes of this exchange, Krell lowered his weapons. I yield, he announced loudly for the crowd to hear. The human has vanquished me. The audience erupted. This was no longer merely combat. This was something entirely distinct. A combatant who could kill, but elected not to. A predator with self-restraint. It was equally beautiful and terrifying. As they exited the arena floor together, Krell regarded Riley with genuine curiosity. Why spare me? Because back home, Riley responded, we have a saying, the strongest person in the room doesn't need to demonstrate it. Your world sounds captivating. It has its moments. Riley paused. Also, between you and me, I'm beginning to sense that someone significantly higher up the food chain will eventually get involved. When that occurs, I might require allies who understand how this place operates. Krell absorbed this. Then he slowly nodded. You think lucidly for someone in a death match. That's the secret, Riley said with a grin. For me, this isn't a death match. This is Tuesday. In his observation booth, Vogt finally possessed the requested data. He read it once, then again, then a third time, his compound eyes widening with each perusal. This cannot be accurate, he whispered. Gila appeared on the screen. What does it indicate, sir? It indicates that human standard gravity is 1.1 times our standard, that their atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, that their average temperature varies by the void. Gila, their planet is classified as a death world, not due to some exotic condition, but because literally everything there evolved to be as lethal as possible, purely for reciprocal survival. I don't comprehend, sir. Vogt gestured towards the arena, where Riley was casually conversing with Krell as if they were old acquaintances. That human? She is not trained. She is not enhanced. She is not exceptional. She is merely average for her species. The implications hung in the air like a storm cloud. How many humans are there? Gila quietly inquired. Vogt checked the data. His drinking tube slipped from nerveless fingers. 8 billion. They stared at each other. Then, simultaneously, they looked back at Riley, who was currently asking Krell if he wanted to grab food before the next round. Sir, Gila said carefully, perhaps we should reevaluate the difficulty scaling for the remaining rounds. Oh, absolutely not, Vogt said, a manic gleam entering his eyes. Do you understand what this signifies, Gila? This signifies we are about to witness history. Either that human will conquer my arena, or the arena will demonstrate to her that there are still entities in this universe capable of challenging her. And if she triumphs all the way to the end, Vogt grinned, revealing all his teeth, then we will possess the single greatest champion this arena has ever seen, and the ratings will be astronomical. Below them, Riley stretched and glanced up at the booth as if she could perceive their gaze. Then she waved, a casual gesture that somehow felt like a promise. Round 6 was about to commence, and the entire sector was watching. By round 10, the arena had transformed from a gladiator pit into a universal phenomenon. Broadcasts were being picked up across 17 systems.
Betting pools had crashed 3 separate financial networks, and Vogt had received no fewer than 47 death threats from gamblers who had wagered against the human, progressing past round 3. Riley Morgan, meanwhile, sat in the ready area, consuming something called a nutrition bar, appearing about as stressed as someone awaiting a shuttle that was 5 minutes behind schedule. The other combatants, those who had somehow persevered thus far, had ceased endeavoring to comprehend her.
The Dracona, whose name turned out to be Torvella, had appointed himself her unofficial bodyguard, despite the obvious absurdity of protecting someone who had punched through a battle mech in round 7. The Kelvin twins, Mira and Kira, had begun replicating her fighting style with terrifying efficacy. Even Krell had remained, volunteering for later rounds simply to continue observing.
"This is unprecedented,"
Gila muttered, updating her logs for the 15th time that day.
"Combatants do not typically form alliances in the trials.
Combatants do not typically confront something that compels them to reevaluate their entire comprehension of the food chain." Bo-Katan admitted that his menacing arena master persona had faltered around the 7th round. Now, he was meticulously documenting everything with the zeal of a scientist discovering a new species.
"Have you noticed she hasn't even perspired?" he queried.
"Sir, humans lack the same respiratory cooling system as most species. They cool themselves by secreting liquid through their skin pores," Gila clarified.
"I'm aware of what sweating is, Gila. My observation is that she hasn't done it. Not once. We are 10 rounds in, and she appears as though she's just awakened from a nap." In the preparation area, Riley indeed looked remarkably refreshed. She had found something akin to coffee at the facility, despite its flavor resembling burnt rubber mixed with regret. Nevertheless, it contained caffeine, which was sufficient. Torval approached her cautiously. After 10 rounds of observing her prowess, he had developed a profound respect, bordering on spiritual awe.
"Human Riley," he rumbled, "may I pose a question?"
"Certainly. Shoot."
"What does shoot signify?"
"It means proceed with your question."
"Ah, thank you."
Torval settled his considerable mass onto a fortified bench.
"On your world, how does one become a warrior? Is there training, rituals, genetic augmentation?"
Riley pondered this, munching her unappetizing nutrition bar.
"Primarily, we simply mature and strive to survive. The environment handles most of the challenge for us." "But you must possess military training, combat academies." "Oh, assuredly, but I never attended any of those. I was a park ranger." A profound silence enveloped the preparation area. Every surviving combatant turned to gape at her. What?" Krell asked slowly. "Park ranger. You know, I ensured people didn't litter in national forests, assisted lost hikers, occasionally dealt with aggressive wildlife. Quite routine, really." Torval's translator implant emitted a disconcerting sound, as if struggling to process information that contradicted its foundational programming. "You are asserting," he stated with extreme care, "that you were responsible for maintaining recreational areas?" "Yep." "And assisting lost civilians?" "Uh-huh." "Not military?" "Nope. Although my father was in the army, so I picked up a few things. Mostly how to pack efficiently and why you should always carry extra water." Mera, or possibly Kira, one of the Kelvin twins, interjected. "The creatures you encountered as a park ranger, they must have been formidable predators at times." "Yeah, grizzly bears could be an issue. Mountain lions. I once had to relocate a pack of wolves that became too comfortable near a campground." And these creatures, Krell continued, would be considered dangerous on your world?
I mean, yeah, they could definitely kill you if you weren't careful. Though, honestly, the most dangerous thing I dealt with was tourists who wanted selfies with buffalo. You haven't experienced true fear until you've watched a guy in flip-flops attempt to pet a 2,000-pound animal with horns. The translators struggled with several of those words. The fighters wrestled with the implications.
Let me comprehend this,
Torval uttered, his voice acquiring a slightly frantic edge.
Your occupation was to safeguard vulnerable, untrained civilians from creatures capable of killing them.
That's one way to phrase it, sure.
And you, who are utterly average for your species, according to the database,
possibly slightly above average, I did achieve 3rd place in my region's cross-country running competition. You protected civilians from predators, each word emerging as if Torval were testing whether reality would crumble.
As a routine job that presumably many others also perform. Well, yeah, someone has to do it. National parks are vital for conservation and public enjoyment.
Torval rose, walked to the nearest wall, and gently bumped his head against it several times. The buzzer signaled the start of round 11. Riley crumpled her nutrition bar wrapper, tossed it into a recycling bin with impeccable accuracy from 30 feet away, and approached the arena entrance. You guys coming? This round is supposed to be environmental adaptation.
Should be interesting.
The fighters exchanged glances, then, as one, trailed her. What other choice did they have? Round 11 unfolded precisely as Vogtharn had advertised. The arena floor had been transformed into 6 distinct extreme environments, each engineered to be lethal in its unique manner. Acid swamps, superheated volcanic zones, sub-zero tundra, zero-gravity sections, areas with toxic atmospheres, and a personal favorite, a zone where gravity randomly oscillated between 0 and 5 times standard.
Fighters must traverse all 6 zones to reach the victory platform, Vakar announced, his confidence marginally restored.
Surely this will challenge the human. Each zone will test your species' adaptive capabilities to their limits. May fortune favor the flexible. The gate opened. The fighters dispersed, each heading for the zone that seemed least immediately fatal to their specific biology. Riley walked directly into the volcanic zone. The temperature hovered above 200 degrees Celsius. The air shimmered with heat. The ground was cracked, molten rock visible through the fissures. This environment was designed to cook most species alive in under 30 seconds. Riley paused, wiped her brow, and murmured, "Ah, like Arizona in August." Then simply walked through it. Not quickly, not struggling, just walking as if strolling through a particularly warm park. In his booth, Vogtharn emitted a sound like a deflating balloon. "Sir," Gila stated frantically, checking her instruments, "the heat sensors are indicating 215 degrees in that zone."
I can see that, Gila. Humans are not supposed to survive that.
Their internal temperature regulation should be failing. Their proteins should be denaturing. Their everything should be dying. And yet, they watched Riley emerge from the volcanic zone, mentally tick it off a list, and head straight for the acid swamp. She studied it for perhaps 5 seconds, found a path across, utilizing raised stones, with one truly impressive leap, and traversed it without acquiring a single drop of acid on her. The zero-gravity zone she navigated by grasping onto walls and propelling herself with casual efficiency. The toxic atmosphere zone she simply held her breath through, moving fast enough to clear it before her oxygen depleted. The sub-zero tundra caused her to shiver slightly, the first sign of discomfort anyone had observed from her. But she still crossed it faster than the cold-adapted species who had selected that zone.
The variable gravity zone was where things became particularly intriguing.
Just as Riley entered it, the gravity surged to 5 times standard. Most species would have been flattened. Riley's knees bent slightly, accommodating the change, and she continued walking. When the gravity vanished entirely, she utilized the momentum to bounce off a wall and rocket toward the victory platform like a missile. She landed, sticking it like an Olympic gymnast, and turned to watch the other fighters, still struggling through their chosen zones. The crowd had transitioned from cheering to something closer to religious chanting. Riley's name, or at least an approximation of it in various alien languages, echoed through the arena. Vathar slumped in his chair. "Gila!" "Yes, sir." "How many rounds did I design for this season?" 20, sir, and we're at 11. "Yes, sir." "She's going to conquer all of them, isn't she?" Gila scrutinized her screens, observing data that consistently returned impossible results, then looked at the human, who was now assisting Torval across the final section of the acid swamp. "Yes, sir, I believe she will." "Then I suppose," Bothan said with a sigh that evolved into a laugh, then into something slightly deranged, "we should ensure the remaining 9 rounds are unforgettable." Round 12 was intended to be a maze filled with traps. Riley solved it in under 3 minutes by scaling the walls and running along the top where there were no traps. Round 13 involved combat against armored assault drones. She dismantled them with the efficiency of someone who had consumed an excessive quantity of online engineering videos. Round 14 was an endurance test, holding a weighted platform above one's head for as long as possible. Riley held it for 47 minutes while conversing with Torval about Earth's orbital mechanics. By round 15, the arena had exhausted its supply of standard challenge types. Vithorn was compelled to improvise. "Round 15, he announced, attempting to reintroduce some drama into the proceedings. "We will test not your body, but your mind. Before you is a puzzle that has confounded scholars for generations. The lock of infinite combinations. Solve it, or remain trapped in the arena until you forfeit." The lock was an ancient artifact recovered from a defunct civilization, boasting a mechanical complexity that bordered on artificial intelligence. It had thousands of moving parts, each influencing the others in cascading patterns. The solution was supposed to be virtually impossible without years of dedicated study. Riley observed it for perhaps 90 seconds, tilting her head as if listening to music only she could perceive. Then her hand began to move, twisting and turning components in a sequence that appeared random, but clearly was not. 5 minutes later, the lock clicked open. The attending scholars, brought in to witness, lost their collective composure. One actually fainted. Another began speaking in tongues, or at least what the translators couldn't identify as any known language. "How?" Krell inquired, staring at the lock. "That should have been impossible." Riley shrugged. "It's simply pattern recognition." The key was realizing that every 7th movement resets the 3rd quadrant, so you have to work in sets of 6. Pretty straightforward once you perceive it. "Pretty straightforward," Krell repeated, dazed. Round 16 was a battle royale against creatures imported from various deathworlds across the sector. Riley befriended 3 of them within the initial 2 minutes and convinced them to fight alongside her against the others. Round 17 was meant to be a trial of inner strength, a resistance against psychic assaults from psionic beings. Riley, it seemed, possessed an innate and formidable mental fortitude, likely honed by a life where daily existence was a relentless struggle. The psionics, recognizing her natural defenses, abandoned their attack and instead requested to examine her brain patterns.
Then came round 18. Floor had reserved his most extreme challenge for this stage, not because he believed it would end her life. By this point, nothing seemed capable of killing the human, but because he was curious to witness her reaction. Round 18 was deceptively simple. One adversary, the reigning champion of the arena, held exclusively for the most dire circumstances. A creature discovered by Vokethan at the fringes of known space, kept sedated and confined because its release was too perilous outside of meticulously controlled conditions. This was the Devourer of Stars, a being that existed partially in normal space and partially in an entirely different dimension. Towering at 15 feet, it was an embodiment of shadows, fangs, and profound hunger. It had never been vanquished. It had never been contained. It had only been appeased through negotiation, and the terms were clear. Offer worthy prey, and it would fight in the arena. Fail to provide such prey, and it would consume everyone within the facility. The gate swung open, and the Devourer emerged. The arena's temperature plummeted by 20 degrees instantly. Light itself seemed to contort around it, as if reality recoiled from its presence. It fixed its gaze on Riley. Riley met its gaze. For the first time since her arrival at the arena, her expression shifted from mild disinterest to something akin to fascination. "Now that," she murmured, "is more like it." The Devourer moved, not by running or walking, but by simply ceasing to exist in one place and then manifesting in another, traversing the distance in an instant. Its claws, if they could even be called that, were sharp enough to cleave through the fabric of space itself. Riley ducked, rolled, then rose with her fists poised. The Devourer's attack sliced through the air where she had been standing, leaving a tear in reality that mended with a sound like shattering glass. The crowd was utterly silent. This was no longer mere entertainment. This was something primordial. This was the mutual recognition of two apex predators. The Devourer struck again, with increased velocity this time. Riley met the blow with her forearm. The impact unleashed a shockwave that fissured the arena floor. She skidded back several feet, carving furrows in the sand. But now, she was smiling. "All right," she declared, cracking her knuckles. "Let's dance." What ensued was the stuff of legends. The Devourer unleashed every maneuver in its expansive repertoire. Reality distortions, phase-shifting attacks that originated from angles impossible in three-dimensional space. Riley countered each one with a blend of remarkable speed, instinctive pattern recognition, and what could only be described as weaponized defiance. She couldn't truly harm it. Its partial existence outside conventional space rendered direct damage largely ineffective. Yet, she could evade it, deflect it, frustrate it, and, crucially, she could discern its operational patterns. 8 minutes into the bout, Riley deciphered its rhythm. The Devourer's assaults followed a predictable sequence, dictated by its partially phased state. It had to fully manifest in regular space for a fleeting fraction of a second with every strike. She anticipated that precise moment. Then, she hit it. The sound was akin to the offspring of a thunderclap and a train wreck. The Devourer was flung backward, colliding with the arena wall with enough force to crack it, and lay momentarily stunned. Riley stood in the arena's center, breathing heavily for the first time since the trials commenced. "You good?" she called out. "That was a solid fight. Respect!" The Devourer slowly righted itself. Then, it performed an action that sent every xenobiologist in the audience into a frantic note-taking frenzy. It bowed, a gesture of acknowledgement from one warrior to another. Afterward, it turned and retreated through its gate, which sealed behind it. The arena erupted. The roar was deafening. Beings shrieked, cheered, and wept. Several religious factions immediately proclaimed Riley a prophet. The betting pools that hadn't collapsed already disintegrated entirely. In his booth, Vokethan sat in stunned silence. Finally, he leaned forward and activated his microphone. Round 18 complete. Winner, Riley Morgan of Earth. He paused, then added, 2 rounds remain. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on us all. Riley exited the arena floor. She was genuinely fatigued now, slightly winded, and a small cut graced her cheek where one of the Devourer's reality-bending attacks had come a little too close. She touched it, examined the blood on her fingers, and chuckled. "Now that was fun," she remarked, to no one in particular. Tarvel Krell and the Kelvin twins met her at the entrance, their expressions transcending respect and bordering on awe. "Human Riley," Tarvel pronounced formally. "You have earned something from me that I have never bestowed upon another fighter. My absolute, complete, and utter terror." "Ah, thanks, buddy." "No, I mean it. You terrify me. Your species terrifies me. I am genuinely concerned about what will transpire when your people inevitably decide to expand into the wider galaxy." Riley patted his scaly shoulder. "We're mostly harmless. We just want to make friends, learn things, and occasionally punch stuff that needs punching. You punched a being composed of shadows and hunger." It punched first. Krell stepped forward. "The Devourer has participated in this arena 12 times. It has never been vanquished. Warriors from across the sector have attempted and failed. And I mean, it was tough," Riley admitted. "Definitely the hardest fight today. But you know what my dad used to say? If something can be hit, it can be beaten. Just took me a few minutes to figure out where to hit." "Your father sounds terrifying." "He was a drill sergeant. Same basic concept." The medical technician from earlier approached nervously. "Human Riley, you are bleeding. May I examine the wound?" She permitted him to inspect the cut on her cheek. He produced a scanner, passed it over her, and his expression cycled through bewilderment, shock, and something akin to despair. "What's wrong?" Riley inquired. Your cellular regeneration is... You're healing while I'm scanning you. The wound is already closing. This rate of recovery is... How are you alive? How does your biology not collapse from the sheer energy requirements of maintaining itself? "We eat a lot," Riley offered. "Oh, and sleep is important. 8 hours a night if you can manage it." The technician backed away, muttering calculations under his breath. Gila's voice broadcast over the facility's PA system. "All fighters, you have 1 hour before round 19. Please use this time to rest and prepare." Riley found a secluded spot, sat down, and closed her eyes. Within 30 seconds, she was asleep, curled up on a bench as if it were the most comfortable bed in the universe, completely relaxed despite being in a deadly arena. The other fighters observed her slumbering form. Toval withdrew a datapad and began making notes. "For my memoirs," he explained to Krell. "If I survive this, I'm writing a book. Nobody will believe it, but I'm writing it anyway." "What will you call it?" Krell inquired. "I was friends with the human who broke the arena. A survivor's tale." Catchy. In his observation booth, Vokethan was experiencing what could only be described as an existential crisis. He had constructed his entire career on fashioning inescapable death traps. He had devised challenges that legendary warriors hadn't survived. He had refined controlled carnage into an art form. And this human, This park ranger from a planet nobody had heard of 6 months prior was treating his life's work as a minor inconvenience.
"Sir,"
Gila said softly,
"what do we do for the final 2 rounds?"
Vokethan looked at her, then at his screens, then at the sleeping human who had just fist-fought a partially real entity and emerged victorious. Then he began to laugh, not the cruel mirth of an arena master, but the genuine laughter of someone who had just realized the universe was far stranger and more wondrous than they had ever conceived. "We give her a show," he finally declared. "If Riley Morgan wants to complete all 20 rounds, if she wants to become the first being in history to do so, then by every god in every pantheon, we're going to ensure rounds 19 and 20 are unforgettable." "What did you have in mind, sir?" Vokethan's grin was manic, yet not malicious. It was the grin of an artist challenged to create their masterpiece. "Round 19. We let her face every champion who has ever survived past round 5. All at once. In round 20, he paused dramatically. Round 20, we ask her what she wants to fight." Gila blinked.
"Sir, that's not how the arena works."
"The arena has never had a human before. We're improvising." Vokethan accessed his communication systems and began dispatching messages. "Get me every living champion within 3 systems. Tell them there's a fighter here they need to see. Tell them that evolution is real, and we found proof." Down in the ready area, Riley continued to sleep peacefully, a faint smile on her face, dreaming of home, of mountains and forests, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. She was unaware that in 1 hour she would confront an army. And after that, whatever challenge her imagination could conjure. The arena held its breath. The galaxy watched. And somewhere on Earth, 8 billion humans went about their day completely oblivious that one of their own had just rewritten the rules of what was possible in this strange, vast universe. 2 rounds remained. The ending was anyone's guess. But one thing was certain. Whatever happened next, it was destined to be absolutely legendary.